Happy Friday.
Cheers. Happy Friday.
I feel guilty already. I don't have AHA sparkling water. We moved to LaCroix. So,
Bye,
actually,
AHA.
you know what? Yeah, AHA didn't pay us. So, LaCroix, maybe they will. So,
Moving
we'll
to
see.
the best next thing.
Yeah, we'll see it. But either way, we're bubbling, we're sparkling, we're not drinking booze. I did just learn that I was drinking booze a month ago with kombucha. Didn't know that had alcohol in it, so I'm on like day 40 now.
Start over.
No, that's a freebie. I didn't know. Alright, so today we got Johanna here. We're going to be talking about her latest post, Sober Living. And the thing I like about Johanna's journey is she didn't have to go to prison. And that's definitely a bonus. Definitely a bonus. I wish I could have avoided it. Maybe it wouldn't have worked for me, and that's the thing. The same path doesn't work for everyone. Sometimes people gotta go to deeper depths, and sometimes people can get by without going too far. But I mean, Not to say you didn't go to
the extreme.
To an extreme rock bottom. So first we're gonna just talk about your initial options. So you said in your post that it was basically between a homeless shelter,
right,
or sober living.
Correct.
So I mean, that obviously made sober living a much more appealable.
Yes.
I can relate to that. I've slept plenty of nights in a vehicle and not knowing where I'm going to sleep the next night, and not knowing if I'm going to have enough money to get a hotel room. That's not a fun situation to be in. So,
no, not at all.
Tell me about just that initial thought when you were getting out of treatment and contemplating sober living.
Yes, I was leaning more towards sober living than anything else, and I knew I would have the structure and the support of the women who I was currently in treatment with, because there was like 10 of us who were going to transition at the same time to sober living, and I had already developed great relationships with those women, and it was cheap. It was extremely cheap compared to getting an apartment and paying all the utilities, and I'm very grateful that they had the option of sober living at an affordable price, because if it hadn't been affordable, I don't know what I would have done.
Yep. And I can't help but to relate. The more I hear about your story and read your story, the more I relate to my situation. And going to RDAP and living in this building with all other RDAP community members. And not only did I take RDAP early, so I had additional time in there to, be in the program, being surrounded by people that all got the same thoughts and values and expectations on them. So that was nice. And then now I'm on home confinement. So it's kind of like another leg of that, probably very similar to the benefits you got from sober living.
Right.
Now I'm living with my mom. I don't have a ton of temptation. Obviously, anytime you're in the free world and you have that ability to go places, you have that ability to go to the liquor store. You said, you were walking by liquor stores
every day.
So that brings me to the point of just that structure as a whole, what that looked like and how that helped you to, kind of keep that temptation at bay and stop you from actually stopping into that liquor store.
Right, and for me, structure is very important, because then it helps me keep my mind focused and in place, instead of having all these grandiose thoughts or like, oh my god, this. And going to work again, just having that structure and being productive, having confidence, I guess.
Yeah, building confidence.
Yeah.
Well, like you said right before we started recording, in reality, you always had that thought in the back of your head, like, I can control my drinking eventually. Yeah.
Even after a year of sobriety.
Even after a year, the goal, even though you're saying, the goal is to be sober the rest of my life, your goal probably really was, for the first year to 18 months, was to get to a point where you could drink again.
Yeah, manage it.
Right. I had the same thoughts years after, even like 3 years after I stopped using while I was in prison, but it wasn't until like 6 months before I got out that I finally said, you know what, I'm not even going to do alcohol.
Yeah.
I still had thoughts, I'm not an alcoholic. Drinking's never been my problem, even though I've been getting in trouble for drinking since I was 14 years old.
Right.
So that's obviously ridiculous, but that shows you that mindset of an addict and how much we want to hold on to those reservations of going back. So let's move on to the next point. Yeah, working on yourself. So let's talk about working on yourself. Obviously, you learn all this stuff I learned all this stuff from RDAP. From going to treatment, same thing for you. You were going to treatment, I was going to treatment. You learn all this material, all these new coping skills, all these new practices to change your thought process, to help you make better choices. Mm-hmm. But then you got to implement it.
Right.
Then the real world comes. And obviously, for me, these different segments of my life in whether it's living in RDAP, living in a community, or it's living at home with my mom on home confinement, still having restrictions, it's allowing me to practice those things I learned. Because temptation still comes, whether it's through the phone or whether it's on the internet. You still have you still have that temptation to do unhealthy stuff. So yeah, memories are a big one. Do not go down memory lane on any type of social media, especially if you've done some years in prison, because you will feel like crap and be like, oh my god, the world passed me by. Or just years of using.
Yeah.
I mean, going down that memory lane, and then you also get the good memories that you want to go back to. It's like,
oh, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. I mean,
3 DUIs, whatever.
Yeah, 7 years in prison, no big deal.
No big deal.
So, and then you talk to the people that were there and weren't
messed
inebriated during the during the situations. And I mean, that brings us to our last point: conflict. It's so much easier not to avoid conflict when you're messed up.
Yeah.
When you're drunk or when you're high, because you don't remember it the same way. But then you take the drugs away. Now you have to not only deal with your emotions, you got to deal with your feelings as they come up. You need to deal with situations that are uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And that's the craziest part of recovery, is overcoming that fear of doing stuff that makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because change is uncomfortable. I mean,
staying sober while you're doing it.
Yeah. I mean, there's just all this. It can be
overwhelming. Absolutely.
So just talk about that conflict. I mean, you're the one that brought that up initially, just about, how it was tough for you to be comfortable.
Yeah, I've always had an issue with conflict resolution or dealing with conflicting issues at that moment. I've always suppressed those feelings, and because it's uncomfortable dealing with conflicts between, even if it's family or friends, coworkers, whoever it may be, and
it's just easier to avoid it typically than
to actually address it. Yeah. And I learned to actually address it when it happens, so more negative thoughts and feelings don't arise with that situation. To suppress it at that time, address the issue so it doesn't be snowballed into something that's even bigger.
Yeah.
Or unnecessary.
Or relapse. Absolutely. Alright, well, I think we can end it there. Once again, until AHA pays us, we'll be drinking LaCroix. No, I'm just kidding. We might be back with some AHAs. I got some, just picked some up at the store this morning, but these peach pears by LaCroix are refreshing.
We'll think about it.
Cheers! Cheers to the weekend.
Have a great weekend!